What do you do when you have a bad meal? You pay the bill, you kind of never go back. Sometimes you'll tell a friend, "Hey, don't go there. Their quality is really bad." What I want to go through is talk a little bit about actual quality. And what I want to do is bring to the context of like food and analysis and kind of breaking things down, doing reviews, everything I do on the channel here for fun. I want to relate that to my everyday job, which is as a analytical chemist in pharmaceutical manufacturing. And in that realm, we rigorously document everything, including notebooks, training, documentation. I'm going to go into all that and kind of apply it a little bit to what I'm trying to do here on the channel and kind of what should be going on in your mind when you have a bad experience or a good experience to kind of highlight exactly what's going on, down to brass tacks. Now we're going to get a little technical here, so stick with me because we're going to apply it to a couple of examples. One was a kind of bad meal that I'm going to walk you through. And when I say bad, it wasn't all bad. There was a couple things, and it kind of it blew up after the fact. And then the second is actually a very good meal that we had. And I have pictures I'm going to draw on the screen. But first, I have a few slides. And for these slides, I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to the imagery, I actually use the Duet AI inside of Google Drive just to see what it would come up with if I put in some prompts. So we can roast the pictures that gave me as we go through this as well. So you can't talk about a quality event in pharmaceutical manufacturing without talking about the 6 M's or 6 P's or 5 M's, 5 P's. Is kind of whoever you talk to might have a different number that they assess. What that is it basically comes down to, I don't know if you've ever heard of Kaizen. It's kind of a Japanese manufacturing, the Toyota method. What we do is we isolate the problem and then we apply different things to it to determine exactly what the root cause of the problem is. Now, when it comes down to that, it sounds highly technical. In pharmaceutical manufacturing, this is the type of thing that goes into when you go into your medicine cabinet and take your medication, the safety of that drug, that you know that the potency is right, you know that it's safe for you to take, and that all this documentation has happened. So again, we're going to kind of go into a little bit, we're going to use those techniques in a fun way, applying it to food, but I want to go over each of those and then we can kind of go into the food portion of it. So you need the 6 P's or 6 M's. And for that, we call it the 6 M's of production. Now, a couple of these you'll notice aren't M's, and it's because we want to make sure that we're as gender inclusive as possible. So, man has been changed to people. Environment was Mother Nature. So it was 6 M's to begin with. When it comes down to people are essentially the when there's a human element to it, that could be a failure point, a reason why something didn't come out the way it was supposed to. When it comes to cooking, and you could see AI is a little weird. I don't know if this is a 3-fingered person. For some reason, AI can't get fingers right. When it comes down to determining root causes in the kitchen, in pharmaceuticals, in everything, we want to kind of consider two things last, and that is people and material, because those are kind of you want to eliminate the others before you start considering those. It's really easy to say, okay, for example, my steak was overcooked. The cook in the back doesn't know what he's doing. But at the heart of it, could it be that the equipment that chef is using is no good? Could it be that their administrative controls, that their management is no good, their methods are no good? So you got to kind of assess each of those before you kind of go into all of it. So when we're talking about people, you want to look at things like training, aptitude. Is the right person in the right job? You don't, if somebody is used to doing fry cook and you put them at a salad station or grilling steaks, is it possible that just wasn't the right role for them and they didn't have the right training? So that's your people element. Another element to consider is machine. Now this here, I typed in machines taking over the world, and this is what it gave me. So it's looks like kind of a female mech Terminator type thing. When you're talking about machine, so like if there's a deep fryer in the kitchen, that'll be your machine aspect of that. In pharmaceuticals, machine could be a reactor, whatever is being used to make the product or widget, whatever you want to call it. So is a machine failure the problem? If it comes to you and your fried food is soggy, could it be that the fryer was not working? Now, a lot of these in pharmaceuticals, we have documentation for each segment of it, so we can say, okay, we ran stuff before and after, and because of that, we have good evidence, and we've documented that good evidence that it worked in between. So it's not a problem. When you're a customer, you don't have access to records of when things were repaired and things like that. So a lot of this is just being a little bit cheeky and trying to apply this to it. So bear with me. We're gonna get to kind of applying this to food and kind of using our best judgment to apply this so that we understand why experiences are bad to begin with. So there's your machine aspect. Then you have your method. So does the cook who is making the steak or whatever, were they do they have procedures in place to say, okay, you grill it on the first side 4 minutes? Do they have timers, things like that? In most cases, I mean, a lot of it is taking stuff out of bags and putting it into deep fryers and assembling things that are already prepared and all that stuff. But even like um, if you go to like Moe's, they'll have a card up on, or any sub shop really, they'll have a card up that basically is the method. First, you put the lettuce, then you put the tomato, then you move it down the line. You put your ham, your salami, your provolone, all that kind of stuff. When methods aren't in place, that could be a reason why there's low quality because there's no control on whether person A or person B does it. So in that case there you can't deem the problem human error because the methods are not established. So that's an example of that. This one is kind of more applicable to actual testing. So is it the measurement? Is it the critic? So if I go to a restaurant and I say, "Oh my God, this steak totally sucks. I asked for it medium rare. You can tell it's overdone, well done, or it's rare." You don't have a thermometer in your finger, so you have no idea if that steak is cooked properly. And there's different grades of steak. Different. I mean, a New York strip might not look the same as a ribeye if it's rare versus medium. Between the two steaks, like if you order the same temperature between the two steaks, they may look totally different. Between choice and prime, even a ribeye, it'll look totally different. So you can't really assess it. Plus, you get into a lot of things like, um, variation of different cows and things like that. So that's just an example. So maybe it's the person who's making the assessment who uh, is the problem. Maybe everything about the restaurant and the experience was good, but it was the person eating it or testing it or whatever that is the root cause for the problem. Don't want to spend too much time there because your preference, if you've had a bad experience and you feel it's bad, then you have to kind of think about the others or not. Think about the other things to determine whether or not it's something really to harp on. Mother Nature. Is it possible that the lights are out in the kitchen and maybe they can't see and that's why they couldn't make it properly? An example is Dave Portnoy, who does the One Bite Pizza reviews, blah 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 blah. He came to a place in Saratoga Springs, a buddy of mine, Mario, and I've done a video on the channel of that pizzeria as well, West Avenue Pizza. The power was out. So could the pizza, he had complained that it wasn't fully cooked. So imagine Mother Nature, environmental effect. They can't control the fact that the power is out, but the customer still wanted a pizza. They still delivered a pizza, but the quality was maybe not up to the usual quality, and the reviewer noticed that. So in that case there, the environment would be the root cause for the problem. And then the last thing we consider is material. Now, this here is a funny one. For this, requested an image of a poorly prepared meal, and I don't know what the heck is going on here. Looks like we have a nice little salad, Like we have 3 fried eggs that are kinda clumped together. One's nice, kinda maybe over maybe medium. The other one is well done. Other one is broken. Maybe there's some chicken fingers or something. There's some Texas toast or French toast sticks. I don't know what that is, but I thought that was funny when I did that. Maybe the dish is just bad. Maybe you can say the ingredients going into this dish were bad, and it caused the dish to be bad. That is a plausible problem, and all of these things go into an assessment of whether or not, okay, for a restaurant, do I want to go back there? Are these things that I would want to address with the kitchen? Obviously, you're not. Most people aren't going to take matters into their own hands that to that level, but I think this 6M is an important thing to consider when you're going through kind of an assessment of, okay, here's a bad meal, why was it bad, or here's a good meal, why was it good? Because at the heart of it, quality comes down to the people making the things, the procedures they have to make the things, what goes into making the things, the equipment they have, and all of these things kind of combine into one nice little package. Ideally, you want a place that has all of it, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's what happens. So let's say we get into some food analysis stuff here. And I pulled up some pictures, and these are quite old. What I wanted to do, so just prefacing, what I did was actually went back into my photo library pretty far, I think right around 2012. The first experience, it was actually in New York City, a restaurant in New York City. The second was a restaurant in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And I've done blog posts on these, but I've never done videos because this was kind of before the video era here on the channel. So let me pull up my window so that I can do this nicely for you. And we're broadcasting today in full 1080p, first time ever. No StreamYard logo in the corner, even though I am using StreamYard. I'm pretty excited about that. We're making moves on the channel here, which is awesome. So this meal, and I need to before we get into, I don't need to bring attention to this restaurant. This restaurant has closed. This restaurant is a disgraced restaurant in New York City. It is the Spotted Pig. They ended up closing around 2020. They were swept into the whole Mario Batali situation back in 2016, 2017. Apparently there was some abhorrent things happening within the restaurant. There was a management problem. There was a kitchen partner and yada yada yada. Anyway, I'm not in no way endorsing this restaurant. In fact, I'm saying there are portions of this meal that were not very high quality. So I need to get that out of the way because I don't want to put myself into that whole thing because I don't need that. All right. So first things first, we have here. This was a brunch between my wife and I. My first time going to this restaurant. We have a beer here called Raison d'Etre from Dogfish Head. This is what I started off the meal with. Pretty good. For some reason, I remember this being a little bit warm, but it was also very early in the morning. So in that case, they're applying the 6Ms. It's possible that their equipment wasn't properly chilling things, or their methods were not proper, such that they even had these in the fridge overnight for service for the next morning. Now, a lot of these beers, also craft beers, they say not to serve at the ice cold. So it's possible that's the case as well. But you could see here, nice little I'm gonna do some drawing. Nice little head on the beer. They made me pour it myself. They brought me a nice little pint glass with the little bubbly. Oh, well, that's beautiful. There you go. Nice little. Well, I got new tools here, so trying to use them. They got I don't know what this is for on the side of glasses, but anyway, thought that was kind of fun. But let's not harp too far onto this. We'll go to the actual meal. So this was our appetizer. If you know what it is, put it in the live chat or leave a comment. I will not pause here too long because it's cheese on toast. And the chef was from the UK. So this is Welsh rarebit. And I'm going to pull up my magnifier, which I love because now I could show you little details here. This here was soggy. I remember the bottom of the bread was super toasty, and I didn't take pictures of everything, but the top of the bread was super soggy. And I think there's ways to make Welsh rarebit such that that's not a problem. But in this case here, I would say, given that this was early in service, is it possible that the method to make these wasn't a uniform method? Maybe they had a toaster that, well, that wouldn't be the method, that would be the machine, right? Um, Maybe they didn't have their toaster calibrated properly such that it was actually toasting for the same amount of time. Maybe that required a manual input where somebody has to put it in the oven and then pull it out after a certain amount of time. These are all things that when something is not right, I kind of try to because a lot of people will just uh, they'll blame their server or whatever, but you want to make sure that you understand the root cause before you actually react, if that makes any sense. Otherwise, what ends up happening is people do the Yelp thing and they'll go online, they'll say, like an example, I filmed something yesterday where I was looking at the reviews and the person said that the it ruined their granddaughter's birthday party because it the pizza was burned. And I looked at the pictures that they had attached to it, and this will be in the video as well. And the pictures looked no different than the pizza that I had sitting in front of me. So I was pretty taken aback by the fact that this person insisted that it was burned. They said they complained to the restaurant, and the restaurant essentially told them that that's the way the pizza comes. So, breaking it down a little bit, what in my mind kind of reasoned out is that because this is was a really thin dough, and I don't have pictures to bring up to show you, so that's why I'm kind of talking through this point. But it was a really thin dough that cooks in a pan at very high heat. And the reason why I know it's high heat is because it's a very thin pizza. It doesn't get a whole lot of rise. In order for it to get to rise, you need to cook it at a lower temperature, either high and really fast, or low and slow. And this here, I know they're cooking for about 15 minutes in a sheet pan. So anyway, to say that before you start complaining, you kind of want to know what you're talking about, because if you don't, then you end up looking like that person who left that review on the Google reviews for this restaurant. So that was the Welsh rarebit at the Spotted Pig. Now, why is this happening? There we go. And then for actual breakfast, what I had was, and this might look like a beautiful plate of breakfast, but there's a couple things that I want to kind of talk about that weren't exactly perfect in my mind, or they categorically weren't perfect. Let me put myself in the corner here so you can see that this is a human being, not an AI. No, I don't want the magnifier. I want the drawing editor. There you go. All right. So this was I think it was called eggs and bacon. So we got our eggs here, right? Now, what do you see about these eggs? And I'll give you just a second. I'll zoom in so you can see a little fine features here. And I didn't color balance these pictures or anything, so it's a little blue, but it does the trick. So, in my opinion, you can kind of see it there a little bit. These eggs were super runny. And that's not a terrible thing. However, To me, it just I for some reason this just didn't taste right. And I think it was because what they're probably doing is pulling the eggs well ahead of the time that they're ready. And that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do in a restaurant, because if they're going to sit under a heat lamp, then they're going to get overcooked by the time they come to the table. But maybe they didn't sit there long enough for it to actually um, get to the point where it would carry to the right temperature when it came to you. So that was the first problem. Other than that, there's kind of some more minor things going on here. The biscuit, lovely biscuit. I love biscuits. Can't complain about a biscuit, right? Well, I'm gonna. Lots of layers, but there's no rise. You kind of want a nice high biscuit, especially when they give you this butter, which appeared a little bit on the kind of congealed side, like it's been sitting out a while. So, in all likelihood, in terms of our 6Ms, when they made this butter, it probably was made the night before. There probably are no procedural controls in place to keep that at a chilled temperature so that it comes out at kind of an optimal temperature to eat it at. And that's not to say that it was bad. I think it was a honey butter too. So looking at that, it it, it was a little weird. But root cause, I would say in that case there, it probably was procedures. They could have probably done a little better when it comes to um I don't know why this is doing that. It's like doubling and tripling. All right, so there's that. And back to the biscuit. Some nice little flaky salt on top. Really can't go wrong with that either. Kind of cool. Um, but yeah, you want a little more rise to a biscuit. So what could have caused that? It looks like, if I were to guess, it could be method, because perhaps they didn't add like the baking soda that you're supposed to add to, or baking powder. I forget which one it is for biscuits. I'm not a great baker. I can talk a big game, but in terms of doing it, that's the type of thing I would need a recipe for. Um, but in terms of biscuit, you have to add that chemical leavener. So maybe the method wasn't right. Maybe the oven was too hot. So maybe the equipment calibration, the temperature calibration for their oven was off. So these are root causes potential. And as somebody, you don't have any way to test your hypothesis unless like you're in the kitchen watching them. So this is kind of very speculative in terms of applying the 6M to food analysis. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But the other thing could be manpower, or human being, human error. Um, so is it possible that that's the case as well? It looks like I gotta. Oh, it's telling me ads are gonna run. Skip that for you guys. That's interesting. So, in terms of that biscuit, not perfect, not terrible, pretty good. This plate was $21, by the way. And I would imagine that $21, most of the cost was that bacon. So let's talk about the bacon. Let me get my magnifier up. All right. Looks pretty good, right? I would say, though, pretty ununiformly cooked. So that to me is more of a method problem. What's the right way to cook bacon, right? Especially when you have this kind of thickness. This side here looks kind of underdone, whereas this side here looks nice and crispy, right? And I'm not going to buy the excuse that they want to satisfy all people with one slice of bacon. That's not going to fly with me. But if I were trying to mitigate this problem, right? What would I do to cook the bacon better? So what you can do is sandwich it in parchment paper with two sheet pans, so that essentially everything has the same contact with metal, and that kind of minimizes the temperature differential from the convection, the air. So this is a method thing, I would say. Um, I would imagine that bacon cooked in this way had very little human input. What probably happened was somebody flopped this out onto a pan, possibly had parchment paper on it or foil or something, or just, on a nice clean pan. Um, and that was the extent of the human interaction. And then possibly the timing of taking it in and out of the oven. But you don't get unevenly cooked things from the something being in the oven the same amount of time. Like, that's not the reason why this is happening. The reason why this is happening is because during the cooking, it wasn't to the point where the bacon was experiencing a uniform amount of heat. So in that case there, I would say that's clearly a method reason for that disparity between cook and the bacon. I will also say again, this is one of those things that you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because you can't you can't test a hypothesis. So like, if we get a result in the analytical lab that doesn't meet the specification, right? What we do is we do an assessment of the 6 M's. We eliminate as many as we can. We narrow it down to a few, and then we kind of go into a secondary protocol where we either remeasure our thing or we retest it. And in those cases there, the remeasurement and retest is kind of designed so that you can definitely assign one of the root causes. If you come out of a remeasurement or retest without a definitive root cause, it's most likely because those root causes are intertwined. So like, measurement has a component of human sometimes and machine sometimes. So that could be the case, or it could be the fact that the material is contributing to a problem with the measurement or the people. You could have these complex root causes, and these are all things, like I said, when you go into your medicine cabinet and you take a medication, these are all things I can guarantee, if a result was found on on the batch that went into that medicine or any of the excipients, really, that documentation, those investigations have happened. You can probably even look it up based on lot numbers. The stuff that there's full disclosure on this stuff. The FDA is very rigorous about it, but in applying it to food, that they're not. They don't care. Actually, I guess in terms of overseeing, kind of as a regulatory body, it's the Food and Drug Association. So I maybe in terms of that, um, yeah, they would have that. I don't think for food though, because I've been involved in inspections in actual kitchens and my dad's deli. Um, I don't think those things are they're not as rigorously documented. They'll do the same type of things like warnings and all that stuff, but not like, they're not going to ask for training records or anything like that. All right, so next up, now we're going to talk about an experience that we had in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Setting the stage here, back in 2011 actually, during Hurricane Sandy, we had made reservations to go to a restaurant by a cook named Chuck Hughes, who was on the Cooking Channel, which was the offshoot of Food Network, because Food Network flopped over to all competitions all the time. So they started Cooking Channel, and Chuck Hughes was one of their kind of newer talent. His food looked amazing. So we decided we wanted to actually take a ride to Montreal. It turned out to be the same weekend as Hurricane Sandy, and it was a one-night trip. We booked a hotel. We literally went just to go here. We walked around the Underground Mall a little bit. It was kind of a nice little date weekend before we got married and had a child, when we were doing those things. So we went to this place, Garde Manger, and there's no sign. You have no idea where it is. You look for this box, and when the restaurant is closed, it's white. When it's open, it's pink or purple, however you want to call that. So that was Garde Manger. Now, the meal was fantastic, phenomenal. I would say the dinner itself, like my main course, was not as good as the rest of it. But I'm going to walk you through each of them. We'll do our 6M when it comes down to all of it. And Then we'll wrap up. I'll give you a little sneak preview of what's happening here next week, same time, same place, and we'll call it a night. How about that? If you're getting value out of this in terms of the 6Ms and just kind of thinking a little bit as scientifically as possible, to me, honestly, like even as a scientist, I feel like this kind of having to do this kind of 6M drilling down all the way to these root causes is more about forensics and like um, data gathering, evidence gathering, something that'll uphold in a court of law, as opposed to actually doing science. So it kind of this is kind of dry in terms, and to me, so I can imagine if you're feeling that way, I can imagine. But if you're getting value out of thinking about things a little more critically, hit a like on the video, leave a comment. I love seeing the comments if you're liking the stuff here, so please do that. All right, so I started the meal with a bloody Caesar. This is the first time I've ever had that, and there's a little sneak peek of that's Cassie. She puts up with me doing my food stuff all the time, so she deserves a lot of credit. She'll sometimes be in the pictures. But this is a dirty Caesar. Instead of being made with tomato juice, it's made with clamato, which I think is a clam tomato juice hybrid. And there's a huge king crab leg sticking out of this thing. It's one of those visuals where it's like I had to get it just for that visual. Tons of horseradish in this. You could see it's kind of how thick it is. One of those things where like they give you the straw, but you want to drink it like it has a handle. You want to drink it like it's a mug. Absolutely amazing. I would say in that case there's no reason to do a 6M. This was absolutely incredible. Then I didn't have enough crab. And mind you, I'll have to say here, I'm not too big of a seafood person. I dip my feet in a little bit, but for this meal, for some reason, I was feeling it. And the reason why I ordered this dish, which is jerk crab, is because I'm a sucker for jerk anything really. And this crab, I've seen him make it on the Food Network or Cooking Channel, whatever it is. And it had tons of seasoning. What do you call that? Cilantro, onion, there's thyme. You could see all that stuff. It was swimming, and the plating here was a little odd, but it was swimming in jerk seasoning. That's what that black stuff is down there. Absolutely amazing. This is the type of thing where like this was you probably remember the rise of gastropubs back in the early 2010s. This was as quintessential of a gastropub as you can find. So like there was no good way to be polite and eat this. And I will say though that there is a little bit of human error or maybe method problem, where why would you plate something that was as liquidy as this was with a wax paper kind of boat thing there? So let's give that a little bit of a roast in terms of that. There's that. That was my first course. But we also split lobster poutine. You're in Canada, right? You have to have poutine. So looking into this, get my magnifier. I got to get like a keyboard shortcut for that. The gravy in Canada is always this kind of deep, rich, kind of red brown. And because it was lobster, I don't know how they did this, but like super concentrated. Like it was like the essence of lobster in this gravy. Cheese curds, crispy fries, chives on top. Absolutely incredible. I wish I could have this right now sitting in front of me. Like that's how good it was. I don't remember what this was. This dipping sauce on the side. I'll have to go back and look at my blog about that. This is all actually available on my blog. If you Google my name and Garde Manger or Canada or something, I'm sure this will come up if you want to read a little more about my in the moment things. I think in this case here, there's no reason to go through a 6M either. This is as perfect as poutine is ever going to get. So let's kind of go away from there. And then the next one, we're going to roast me. This, I'm going to call it measurement. This doesn't look very appetizing. What it is, let me maybe remind myself here. I think there was some gnocchi in here. Yep. So it was a duck breast cooked over some gnocchi, um, and there was like a little bit of like vegetables in there and stuff. And this is a measurement problem because this may not look great. It's user error on the camera. I had a new camera, and even the previous picture, you could see it's washed out a little bit. I didn't know how to use it, and it was a low light situation. So, in terms of M's, that's measurement problem. In terms of the dish, I don't think I have anything to complain about. And then the last one, we're going to do the same thing. This picture looks like crap, but it is a scoop of ice cream, and that's a deep fried Mars bar. Make that a little bigger. Deep fried Mars bar. Use this one. And so usually a deep fried Mars bar has kind of a puffier tempura batter. This one here was more of like a breadcrumb, like almost like coated in cereal, which was awesome. So that's garde manger. And just one more thing before we go here, I want to talk about next week. It's the Christmas party, guys. We are going to do hot takes. I got the game right here. I got the hat right here. We're going to be all in Christmas mode. Oh, of course, that's kind of dumb. I wasn't showing you. I got my hot takes. I got my hat. I'm going to get some eggnog. I'm going to bring out some other fun stuff to kind of do. I have a Christmas vacation moose mug that I bring out once a year just for the eggnog party. So we're going to do that. We're going to do some hot takes. I want to do this as a game show. So come in the comments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a card and I'm going to react to whatever the hot take is. We're going to try to get the food ones because this is a food channel for the most part. But, for the most part, we're here to have a good time, and we're going to do that. And then you guys can be the judge. The way this game works, the other people in the room are supposed to judge whether you made a good argument. So I have to make the argument, and you guys have to judge if I did it right. And we'll do that in the live chat or the comments. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this, learning a little bit about quality, how I would apply it to a food analysis. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because if I do come across an experience that's a bad experience, I may actually do quality events within the videos because it gives an angle to that's just not being done on YouTube. So I think that might be a way to go here on the channel. It might be interesting. If that's something you want to see, leave it in the comments. Let me know. Reach out on social media if you find something that you want to see me cover. And other than that, guys, have an amazing weekend. And I hope things leading into the holidays go well for you.